The key didn't fit. That was the first sign something was wrong. I stood there on the porch, suitcase in one hand, grocery bag in the other, staring at the doorknob like it had betrayed me. My house stood quiet in the August dusk. Same pale blue siding, same rusted wind chimes clinking above the window. But my key, the same one I'd used for the last 24 years, no longer fit the lock. I tried again. No give. The key wasn't worn down. It wasn't bent. It just didn't belong. I exhaled slowly, set the bag down on the welcome mat. Maria's old one, still faded with the words "Bless this home," and stared at the door. This was my home. I'd bought it when Jamie was 4, paid off the mortgage early by working overtime in the warehouse, even through Maria's chemo, even through the recession. I knew every creak in the floorboards, every flake in the ceiling paint. This house was mine. 3 weeks. I'd been gone for 3 damn weeks. First real break I'd taken since Maria passed. A retirement trip to Myrtle Beach. My doctor said I needed it. Said grief was a weight the body can't carry forever. So I listened. I let go for a little while. I trusted Jamie. I pulled out my phone and called him. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Jamie. I'm standing in front of the house and my key isn't working. Call me. A robin chirped from the oak tree I planted when Jamie graduated high school. The sprinklers kicked on next door. I stood there, listening to the sound of water hitting grass, trying to make sense of something that didn't make any. Then I called a locksmith. He arrived 20 minutes later in a white van that read Tucker's lock and safe. Middle-aged, red polo, kind of guy who looked like he fixed things before you even explained what was broken. "Mr. Baldwin?" he asked as he approached. "Yeah." He glanced at the lock. "Looks like a Quickset 660 with a smart key core. That's not original to the door." My mouth tightened. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then gave me a puzzled look. "I mean it's new. Like, less than 48 hours old. I installed it myself." I blinked. "You what?" He opened a small tablet from his case, tapped through a few screens, then turned it toward me. There was my address. Date: yesterday. Customer Jamie Baldwin. My son. "I'm sorry, but you didn't authorize that?" he asked, voice cautious now. I shook my head slowly. "No, I didn't." The locksmith's eyes narrowed. "He said it was an emergency. Said his dad was out of town and he'd lost the keys. Paid cash." I felt the first crack in my chest. Not pain, not yet. Just something cold. Heavy. Settling in the space between anger and realization. "Can you get me in?" He looked at me, then at the house. "It's your house, right?" "Yeah," I said. "It's my house." He got to work. 5 minutes later, the door was open. I stepped inside and stopped. The furniture had been moved. My recliner, the one Maria bought me the year I turned 50, gone. A new sectional in its place. My bookshelf gone. Replaced with a floating unit stocked with books I didn't recognize and little ceramic statues that definitely weren't mine. The air smelled like lavender. There were fresh flowers in a vase on the kitchen counter. Someone had been living here. Someone was still living here. And it wasn't me. I didn't take another step. Not yet. I stood just inside the doorway, suitcase still in hand, staring at a living room I barely recognized. Same walls, same windows, but everything else? Gone. The old family photos were missing from the mantel, replaced with abstract art, cool, muted colors in modern black frames. The coffee table was some sleek glass thing, cold and lifeless. My mother's quilt, which had always hung on the back of the couch, folded neat and untouched in the hallway closet. I opened the door to check. I already knew it would be there. This wasn't a remodel. It was a replacement. I moved into the kitchen. The fridge buzzed softly, unfamiliar hum. New model. Sleek stainless steel. My fridge had been a white Whirlpool from the early 2000s. This one still had a delivery sticker on the side. The pantry had been reorganized. Maria's Tupperware gone. My rows of canned soup gone. In their place were protein bars, gluten-free pasta, oat milk. The kind of food Jamie's girlfriend, Nicole, always brought when they visited. A faint noise upstairs. A door closing. I froze. This wasn't just my house being redecorated. Someone was here. "Hello," I called. Not loud. Just enough. Silence. Then footsteps. A familiar voice descending the stairs like a thief trying to sound innocent. "Dad." Jamie appeared in the hallway, wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt I didn't recognize. He had a phone in one hand and that stupid sheepish smile he used to flash when he got caught sneaking beers in high school. "I didn't know you were getting back today. That's obvious." He stopped a few feet from me. "I thought you said the 22nd. Today is the 22nd. He looked at the lock behind me. "You got in." "No thanks to you. Your number went straight to voicemail. Right? My phone's been acting up." He tapped it as if to prove something. "Bad reception." "You changed the locks." He didn't answer right away. That pause said everything. "Jamie." "Yeah, okay. Yeah, I did. Just a precaution. Crime and all." "Crime," I repeated. "And you hired a locksmith. Paid him cash." "I didn't want to bother you while you were away. This is my house." "I know. Then why am I standing here wondering why the hell it doesn't look like mine anymore?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I didn't think you'd mind. Nicole needed a place to work remotely, and my lease was up and—" "Stop." He did. I walked past him toward the stairs. Everything in me wanted to keep my voice level, my steps even. Upstairs, the master bedroom door was open. Inside, the bedspread was new. The walls were painted a soft gray. Maria's things, all of them, were gone. I opened the closet. Empty hangers. No scent of her perfume. No folded blouses. No jewelry box. Gone. The dresser drawers? Filled with Jamie's socks. Nicole's hair straightener on the nightstand. He had moved into my room. I turned slowly and looked at him. "Where is her stuff?" Jamie shifted uncomfortably. "We packed it away. It was just taking up space. I figured maybe it was time." "Time for what?" He didn't answer. I walked past him again. Down the stairs. Into the basement. The safe was still there. I checked the dial. Untouched. Good. Back upstairs, I looked at Jamie. Really looked at him. He was sweating. Not from heat. From fear. But not the right kind. Not fear of me. Fear of getting caught. This wasn't improvisation. This was planning. "You want to tell me what's really going on?" I asked. He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A voicemail. From the locksmith. I hit play. "Hey, Mr. Baldwin. Just wanted to confirm that everything's good. Your son told me you were selling the place and needed it secured fast. Said you wouldn't be back until next month, but I'm glad you got in okay. Let me know if you need anything else." Selling the place. My house. And apparently I wasn't supposed to be back yet. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just stood there with the phone still in my hand. Voicemail still echoing in the air like a hammer strike in a cathedral. Jamie stared at me, waiting for me to yell, expecting it, hoping maybe that I'd explode and get it over with. I didn't. I just walked to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat down like I had 1,000 nights before. My knees cracked. My hands were steady. I was thinking now, not reacting. That's what he didn't expect. "Selling the place?" I said, finally, voice calm. "Is that right?" "It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like you told a locksmith your father was selling his home and wouldn't be back until next month. I was going to talk to you about it." "When?" "Soon. I just needed to figure some things out first." I nodded, slowly. He was lying but not improvising. That's what worried me most. These were rehearsed lines. Practiced lies. He hadn't panicked when I showed up. He'd calculated the risk of me showing up. That means he thought he had time. I leaned back in the chair. "Show me the paperwork." "What?" "You heard me. If you were serious about this house being sold, if you were involved in selling it, there's a paper trail. Show it to me." He hesitated. I waited. Then he moved to the hall closet, my filing cabinet now shoved behind Nicole's boots, and pulled out a thin manila folder. I took it from his hand and opened it. There it was. A fake. It looked real enough to someone who didn't know better. Generic-looking documents with my name printed neatly in all the right places. But the signature wasn't mine. It was close, but not close enough. You forged my signature. Jamie's face twitched. Just slightly, but it was there. No, Dad, I didn't. Nicole works in real estate. She just helped draft up a preliminary. You forged my name on a property transfer authorization. It's not official. It hasn't gone through yet. You tried to steal my house. He flinched like I'd hit him. I wasn't, he paused. Tried again. You're alone, Dad. You've been alone for 2 years. That house is too much. You don't need it. So you thought you'd just take it. I thought I'd save it. Before you screwed it all up with bad financial decisions. You're not exactly young, you know? There it was. The poison. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even cruelty. It was cold, practical justification. Like he believed he was being generous. You think I don't know how to take care of myself? He didn't answer. You think I'm slipping. Still nothing. I stared at him. You thought if you moved in while I was gone, changed the locks and started switching out the furniture, you'd slowly erase me from the house. His eyes darted to the floor. You've been planning this for how long? Since I booked the trip? Since Nicole moved in? She said it was an opportunity. Of course she did. And if I hadn't come home today? He didn't answer that either. But we both knew. He would have gone to the notary next week. Found someone willing to look the other way for a few extra bucks. Finalized the forged sale. Listed the house. Sold it under my name. Disappeared with Nicole and the money. And I'd be standing on this porch in September with a useless key and no legal rights to the home I built with my wife. I'm not stupid, Jamie. I never said you were. You didn't have to. He opened his mouth again, but I raised a hand. Stop talking. I stood, walked past him toward the front door. You going to call the cops? He asked, voice low. Not tonight. I opened the door, stepped out onto the porch. The sun had just dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the lawn I'd mowed 1,000 times. I'm going to make a few calls, I said over my shoulder. To a lawyer, to the bank, to a friend who used to work in the county recorder's office. Then I turned and looked him dead in the eye. And then I'm going to make sure you never get close to this house again. Jamie didn't follow me outside. I think part of him knew not to push his luck. Maybe he thought I was bluffing, that I'd cool off after a walk around the block, come back inside, and we'd all pretend this was a misunderstanding. I didn't take a walk. I made calls. The first was to Alan Bishop, my lawyer for the last 17 years. He was blunt, which I appreciated. Forgery? That's criminal, Alan said after I explained the situation. We'll need a forensic document examiner. But if you have the original documents and your ID, we can lock this down fast. What about the fake paperwork he drafted? Bring it in. Don't confront him again. Just gather everything. Quietly. The second call was to Cheryl, who worked at the local registrar's office. She and Maria used to run PDA fundraisers together. I explained that I suspected someone was attempting to file a fraudulent property transfer. Her tone shifted instantly. Give me your parcel number, she said. I'll put a note on your file right now. Any unusual activity will trigger a hold. You'll get a call before anything gets pushed through. The third call was to a locksmith. Not the one Jamie used. A different one. My guy, Tony. By the time I finished, the porch light had come on automatically. Jamie was watching me through the front window. I stared back, stone-faced, until he stepped away. Good. Inside, I didn't say a word to him. Just walked to the guest bedroom, my office before he moved in, and grabbed the manila folder he had hidden in the closet. I checked the dates. The forms were dated 2 weeks ago, the week I'd posted vacation photos from Myrtle Beach on Facebook. He'd waited for me to relax, to smile for the first time in months. That's when he'd started the process. Calculated. Cold. Just like Nicole. I opened the utility drawer and found their Wi-Fi printer. Inside was a page still warm. An unsigned power of attorney document. My name typed neatly at the bottom. They weren't just going to take the house. They were going to take everything. Bank accounts, my pension, my car. I took photos of everything, then printed a fresh note and placed it on the printer tray. Everything in here has been copied and forwarded to legal counsel. You are being watched. Jamie saw it the next morning. I heard the clatter of the paper tray and then silence. He didn't say a word to me over breakfast. Nicole didn't come downstairs at all. Good. I spent the day pretending to do yard work. In reality, I was removing all their crap from the shed, stacking it neatly by the fence. No shouting. No drama. By 3 p.m., Tony the locksmith arrived. Changed the front door. Changed the back. Rekeyed the garage. I'll drop a spare at your bank's deposit box like we discussed, he said. Jamie came outside while Tony was packing up. What the hell is this? He asked. Your guests, I said. And the guest stay just expired. You can't just. I can. And I did. Nicole appeared behind him, arms crossed, sunglasses on. This is insane, Mr. Baldwin. You're acting paranoid. You forged legal documents. You tried to steal a home from your own father. That's not paranoia. That's preparation. Jamie stepped forward, but Tony put himself between us, toolbox still in hand. Jamie hesitated. Tony didn't. You've got until Friday, I said. After that, I file charges. And you think people are going to believe some angry old man over us? Nicole snapped. You think they'll listen? I smiled. A real one this time. I don't need them to listen. I just need them to read. Friday morning came fast. They didn't pack. They didn't leave. They just simmered, tried to pretend like this was still their house, like this was just a disagreement to be smoothed over with time and guilt. But every hour that passed, I noticed them growing quieter, more careful, more suspicious. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just made calls. Loudly in the living room, while they hovered upstairs pretending not to listen. By noon, a plain white envelope was hand-delivered to the house. Jamie found it on the porch. He opened it in front of me. Inside, a cease and desist order, drafted by Alan. Formal notice of suspected fraud. Clear warnings about criminal charges if they continued to misrepresent themselves as legal residents or authorized parties on my property. Jamie dropped the letter onto the coffee table and looked at me like I'd pulled a gun. You're serious about this? I'm always serious when someone tries to steal my life. Nicole scoffed. This is just harassment. You're using your age to play victim. You're scared we'll challenge you in court. No, I said calmly. I'm counting on it. They didn't get it. Not yet. See, I'd spent 30 years as an operations manager at a logistics firm. I'd buried thieves in paperwork. Buried liars in paper trails. I knew how to document things better than most lawyers. Every email they sent. Every form they touched. I already had copies forwarded to 3 people and 2 attorneys. I'd even installed a motion-activated camera over the safe in the basement. They didn't know it yet, but they would. Friday evening, they finally began to crack. I was sitting in my recliner, my returned recliner, since I made them haul it back in after Tony changed the locks, and Jamie hovered at the doorway like a dog who knew the leash was coming. Look, he said. I get that you're upset. No, you don't. Okay, fine, he said. But this isn't as black and white as you're making it. You forged my signature. That's a felony. That's about as black and white as it gets. We were just trying to help. You've been off. You sleep all day. You're moody. We thought maybe you needed someone to manage things for a while. I stared at him. You mean control them? That's not fair. No. What's not fair is coming home from a vacation and realizing your own son spent the time trying to erase you. Nicole came in from the hallway, phone in hand. We spoke to someone, she said. If this goes to court, they'll take into account your behavior, the isolation, the instability. Mental capacity evaluations can be ordered. You're going to claim I'm incompetent? If we have to, she said coldly. This is bigger than just some bruised pride. You're not safe living alone. You're forgetful, vulnerable. I stood, not fast, not dramatic, just enough to let the air change. I still do my own taxes. Still drive myself to the doctor. Still mow the lawn. Still manage my own prescriptions. You know what else I've done? I reached into the drawer and pulled out a flash drive. Backed up every message, document, and voice memo from the last 2 weeks. Jamie's face paled. I also recorded every conversation in this house since Monday, including the one where Nicole said she could make me look unstable with the right statement from a doctor friend. Nicole stiffened. You bugged us. No, I said. I protected myself. From you. Jamie sat down slowly. So what happens now? You get your things. You leave by 5 p.m. tomorrow. You go live your adult lives somewhere else. And if you try anything at all, I file charges. I press every legal lever I can find until you learn what it means to steal from someone who taught you better. Nicole's voice was ice. You'd throw your own son in jail? I'd throw anyone in jail who treats me like a bank with dementia. I left the room. I didn't slam the door. Didn't need to. They'd already heard the loudest statement I had to make. They didn't come down for dinner. That was my first confirmation that they were scared. Not outwardly. Not the kind of fear that makes people tremble or cry. No, this was the quieter kind. The kind that makes you hide, whisper in the hallway, avoid eye contact. It makes you act like a house guest in a home you tried to steal. I had cooked just for myself. 1 grilled cheese, soup from a can, and a small glass of the bourbon Jamie bought me last Christmas. The same bottle he almost finished himself when they moved in. By 8:45 p.m., the house was still. A manufactured stillness. The kind that buzzes beneath the surface when someone's planning something. So I waited. I sat in my chair in the living room. Lights dimmed, television playing low. It was habit now, making my presence obvious but my awareness invisible. You'd be amazed what people say or do when they think you're old and drifting off to sleep in front of the 10 o'clock news. At 10:12 p.m., I heard movement. A door creaked upstairs. Soft steps on the hallway carpet. Whispered voices I couldn't make out. Then the careful descent of feet on the stairs. Not rushed. Not slow. Measured. I didn't move. The basement door opened with a faint click. Then closed again. I muted the television. From the ceiling vent beside me, the sound of footsteps crept through the ductwork. Jamie had no idea how loud he was. How every board in that basement groaned like an old man waking up. I pictured him now, holding a flashlight between his teeth, hands slick with sweat, trying to remember the combination I changed 2 days ago. The safe would open easily, just not for him. I'd left it unlocked, to bait him. Inside. A pile of neatly stacked envelopes with nothing valuable inside. Expired insurance documents, old tax folders, junk mail from 10 years ago. A flash drive labeled retirement plan, do not touch, that contained nothing but decoy files. Grocery lists, photos of Maria's old garden, a single Word document that read, "Nice try, Jamie. Some doors aren't yours to open." I gave him 15 minutes, then 20. At 25, I heard the basement door click open again. Steps across the hardwood floor. A creak near the hallway. Then a door upstairs closing faster than it should have. I took a deep breath, unmuted the TV, and turned it off. Let the silence settle like dust. Then I stood, grabbed the second flash drive, the real one, and carried it to my office. Plugged it in. Watched the recording from the new motion-activated camera I'd mounted above the basement shelf. Clear as daylight, Jamie opening the safe. Nicole behind him, both of them rummaging, whispering. Nicole's voice. This can't be it. This is junk. Jamie, he moved everything. He knows. Then silence. Long, heavy. The weight of failure sitting squarely on their shoulders. And then Nicole again. We have to go, before this gets worse. Worse. I smiled at the word. It already was. Saturday morning started like any other. Except this time, the air felt thinner. Like the house itself was tired of pretending. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching the steam rise from the mug, listening to the sound of drawers being opened upstairs. They were packing. Finally, I heard Nicole's heels, never subtle, clicking from one end of the hall to the other. Closet doors opened and slammed. Jamie cursed once under his breath. I didn't bother asking if they needed help. I wasn't going to give them anything else. The clock on the wall ticked past 10 a.m. The house smelled like burnt coffee and dust. I flipped through my notepad, reviewing everything I documented. Dates, times, statements. Alan said it might not come to court, but if it did, I'd already won. Nicole's printed drafts of the power of attorney. Jamie's voice on the recording. The forged documents. The email Jamie forgot to delete from the shared family computer. The one titled, Baldwin Property Transfer, and signed. It was all there. At 11:17 a.m., Jamie finally came downstairs. No suitcase. Just him. He stopped at the bottom step like the floor might electrocute him. I need to talk to you, he said. I didn't look up from my coffee. I don't think there's much left to say. His voice lowered. Dad, I'm sorry. I set my mug down carefully. No, you're not. You're just sorry it didn't work. That's not fair. Fair would have been you calling me before changing the locks. Fair would have been telling the truth instead of forging my name. You don't get to talk about fair now. He swallowed hard. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You were trying to steal from me. It was Nicole's idea. I raised a hand. Stop. He did. You were a grown man when she showed up. You could have said no. You could have respected the fact that this house is the last thing your mother left me. But you didn't. He stared at the floor. Couldn't even look me in the eye. I didn't know it meant that much to you. I laughed. Quiet, bitter. You didn't know? I stood, walked to the counter, picked up the framed photo of Maria in the garden. Dirt on her jeans, sun on her face. This house is where I carried her inside after chemo, where she wrote you birthday cards even when her hands shook. It's where I built her a shelf for her cookbooks, where she died holding my hand in the room you tried to paint over like none of it mattered. Jamie didn't respond. You didn't just try to take a house, I said. You tried to erase a lifetime for a payout, and you didn't even have the decency to be ashamed of it. He turned away, maybe to hide the look on his face, maybe because he couldn't hide it anymore. You have until 3 p.m., I said. After that, I call the police and I hand them everything. We're leaving, he muttered. I didn't want it to end like this. I nodded once. Neither did I. By 2:17 p.m., the house was nearly quiet again. Nicole made a point of not speaking to me. She came downstairs carrying a pair of designer suitcases, phone in one hand, coffee cup in the other like she still had dignity left to defend. She didn't. Not in this house. She didn't even look at me when she passed through the kitchen. Jamie followed 5 minutes later, carrying 3 plastic bins stacked unevenly. His stuff probably, though I saw a few of my tools in there too. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Watched them walk through the house like ghosts. Not welcome. Not wanted. At 2:32 p.m., the moving van pulled into the driveway. Not a professional service. Just a buddy of Jamie's in a borrowed U-Haul. They loaded things quickly, avoiding my gaze, heads down, shoulders stiff. I stayed in the kitchen. Didn't follow. Didn't supervise. I didn't need to. The real move had already happened 3 days ago. When I reclaimed the deed. When I called Alan. When I changed the locks again, this time with codes that only I knew. At 2:50 p.m., Jamie came back inside. One last box in his hands. The same cardboard box we'd used when he moved off to college years ago. It still had his handwriting on the side in thick black marker. Room stuff. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. I think he wanted to say something meaningful. Some kind of closing line that would soften the damage. But he didn't have it in him. Is that everything? I asked. He nodded. Good. He lingered. You'll be okay? I almost laughed. But I didn't. I was okay before you got here. I'll be okay after. He swallowed and nodded. If something happens, you can still call me. If something happens, I said. It won't be you I call. That one hit him. He didn't say goodbye, just turned and walked out the door. I watched through the window as the van backed out of the driveway. Nicole was already in the passenger seat, face buried in her phone. Jamie stood for a moment on the lawn, looking at the house, maybe for the last time. Then he climbed in and shut the door. The van disappeared down the street, taillights blinking like an apology that came too late. At 3 p.m. exactly, I closed the front door, locked it behind me, and stood in the silence of my home. My house, my memories, my name on every wall and window, and let myself exhale. For the first time in weeks, the air felt mine again. That evening, I walked through the house slowly, as if seeing it for the first time in years. It's strange how someone can change a place without knocking down a single wall. Nicole hadn't touched the structure. She hadn't even stayed long enough to leave real damage. But there were marks everywhere. Her scent still lingered in the guest room, flowery and artificial. Jamie's sneakers had left tracks across the back hallway floor, already smudging the hardwood I'd refinished just last year. I started in the master bedroom. The closet was mostly empty now, but not entirely. One of Maria's sweaters was still folded on the top shelf. Ivory wool, hand-knit by her mother. Nicole had probably missed it because it wasn't in a box or a drawer. It had just sat there, watching everything. I took it down, held it to my chest, and let myself sit on the bed for a long time. Eventually, I stood again, checked the bathroom. Nothing left but a pink hair tie behind the sink faucet. Trash. Into the bin it went. In the kitchen, I made an inventory. My mugs were still here, my plates too. But the silverware was all mismatched now. Nicole had brought her own set. Sleek, modern, gold-tinted. She'd mixed them in with mine without asking. I found them easily enough, threw the whole lot into a grocery bag, and tied it shut. I dropped them off at Goodwill in the morning. I didn't want anything of hers staying in drawers meant for family. By 8 p.m., I'd gone through every room. The house was lighter, cleaner, but not empty. I sat back in my recliner, turned on the same old floor lamp, and opened Maria's photo album, still hidden behind the bookshelf, where I'd stashed it months ago. Jamie and Nicole hadn't found it. Probably didn't care to look. It wasn't money. Wasn't something they could flip or forge. First page, Maria on our wedding day. Second, Jamie, age 2, grinning with jelly on his face. Third, the day we bought this house. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying already, quietly years ago, when I buried the woman who made this house a home. What I felt now wasn't sadness. It was clarity. They had tried to steal what they didn't earn. Tried to exploit age as weakness, kindness as blindness. But they failed. I closed the album and looked around the living room. It was still my house, still my life. And now, finally, I had it back. The final move came on Monday. I waited until the weekend passed, until the air in the house had fully reset. Quiet, clean, absent of their noise. I sat in my office, staring at the flash drive one last time. Then I slid it into the padded envelope, sealed it, and drove to Alan's office myself. He didn't say much when I handed it over. "This is everything?" he asked. "Recordings, documents, forged files, metadata, timeline, yes." He gave a short nod. "Then let's bury them." I didn't need to ask what he meant. That afternoon, Jamie called. First time since they left. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. His voice shaky. "Dad, I know you're angry, but this doesn't have to be a war. Can we talk? Just hear me out, please." 10 minutes later, Nicole texted, "You're blowing this out of proportion. We were trying to protect your future. You're overreacting." They had no idea what was already in motion. By Wednesday, they did. Alan sent out 2 official letters, one to Jamie, one to Nicole. Certified mail. Inside, a formal declaration that criminal charges were being pursued. Included was a statement of intent to file under Penal Code Section 470, forgery, and civil code violations involving fraudulent misrepresentation and attempted elder abuse. We added an affidavit from Cheryl at the registrar's office, confirming Jamie's attempts to gain access to property records using false pretenses. Next came the restraining order. They were served at Nicole's apartment 2 towns over. I didn't go. Didn't need to. The documents spoke louder than I ever could. Jamie called again. This time I answered. "You're really doing this?" he said. "To your own son?" "No," I said. "You did this. I'm just finishing it." He was quiet for a second. "You could have just told me to leave." "I did. You didn't listen." He tried one more card. "People will think you're heartless." "Let them," I said. "I'd rather be heartless than homeless." Then I hung up. 2 weeks later, I received confirmation. The DA's office had accepted the complaint. Jamie and Nicole weren't going to prison. Not yet. But they'd been flagged in the county system. Any further attempt to touch my property, my finances, or my legal records would trigger an automatic investigation. They'd never get near me again. I walked out onto the porch that evening. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the lawn I'd once watched Jamie play on. And for the first time in months, the house behind me felt whole again. Not just mine. Untouchable.